And I think what bootstraps helps you and demand from you is to be really, really focused about what you're doing and what you're not doing, because you cannot just try to do so many things simultaneously. You have to pick the most impactful thing that will drive the revenue, because if you won't drive the revenue, you won't be able to hire more people. So it helps you to be really good on taking decision on what's going to make an impact or not.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Leumi Tech, sponsored by Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Turing, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and in media partnership with C-Tech. I'm excited to share with you the story of an amazing startup, Lusha, that was bootstrapped for 4.5 years in the B2B sales space. Meet Yoni Tserruya, co-founder and CEO of Lusha. As Lusha's co-founder and CEO, Yoni first developed Lusha as a side project during his first job as an iOS developer. After 1 year, his pet project exploded, and he decided to turn his passion into his profession. Today, Yoni helps create the vision and strategy that informs all products and business decisions at Lusha. He focuses on hiring the right team, anticipating the future needs of customers, and envisioning the future of the data world. As software engineer by trade, Yoni graduated with a BSc from Ben Gurion University. Yoni Tserruya, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders from the Lusha offices, I'm assuming. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. How are you?
I am doing great. Good morning to both of us. Yoni,
Good morning.
you're stationed in the middle of one of the most fascinating industries that are new. One of the industries that just didn't exist, just a few years ago, at least not in the scale and the complexity that we're seeing today in a data-driven world. And we're talking about B2B sales, and we're talking about understanding how do we reach the relevant people with the relevant content in a globalized world. And I'm really excited to dive deep both into Lusha, but also dive deep into your life, Yoni, and what led you to understand the market the way that you did, and a personal conviction of what's happening. So, Yoni, who are you? Who's Yoni?
Okay, so let me start a bit because you asked several questions. So I'm Yoni. I'm 36 years old. I'm father of three. I founded Lusha with my partner Asaf 5 years ago. And when we found Lusha, we basically tried to solve a problem for recruiters when they need to reach out to potential candidates, and it's really hard for them to do it over the web and over social networks. So we knew, my partner knew the pain of the recruiters really, really well, and we started to solve that and give them the ability to and business contact details and easily reach out to potential candidates. But very quickly we understood that the real big pain in the world and the real customer of Lusha is the salesperson, because very quickly they discover the product and their potential with it. So since then, most of our focus is on providing the best data and insights for salespeople to make the world work much more productive.
I have to delay on this exact. You said it in 2 sentences, but it feels to me like this was, a big milestone for the company. You're starting off with recruiters, and then somehow it gets picked up by salespeople, and you understand that actually your real product market fit is in the latter type of people, right?
Yeah. I think we realize that recruiters and sales are similar in a way. The main difference is that recruiters are very picky with the people they really want to connect with, and salesperson are less. So they need more data than recruiters, but actually they both of them need to reach out and just create a deal. So we saw that there are many more salespeople in the world, and the need and the understanding and the willingness to buy technologies is just more advanced, and this problem is just much bigger because sales methodology today is still spray and pray. If you think about it, you have a lot of salespeople. They just try to reach out and connect with not enough data for company and try to buy. And I think that the world is transforming into selling with much more data, so you are much more focused, and you have a spotlight on the right company where the potential is the highest. And I think there are several trends in the world today that we see that the fastest growing company today are providing self-service business in addition to traditional sales. And what's happened is that, and even if you have traditional sales, today you can sell to anyone in the world, and it's become really easy. And the challenge is that your customer base increased dramatically, and the sales teams just cannot offer human touch to every potential buyer or every user in the system. So what they need to have is they need to have accurate data, so they will know where to focus and where their real potential is. And to emphasize that, the best companies today, even if they provide self-service model, still 10% of their customers represent 70% of the sales, of the revenue. The challenge is, how do you identify and distinguish who are those 10% that you need to focus your sales efforts in? And just don't waste your time on the small or low potential buyers. And so this is what we try to provide them in the best way.
So if I understand correctly, you're taking this idea that, just statistically speaking, 10% of the customers of most companies are indicative of 70% of their revenues. And therefore, if we're looking at the human-to-human sales cycle, those are where we should be optimizing. Even if we do have a self-service, a method of onboarding, this is where we want to prioritize. And that is exactly where Lusha interjects, right?
Exactly. And let me give you some examples of how different the story of a company can be, because I can give you two companies with 200 employees, for example. But one company, last year, they were 100 employees and they just raised money, and they are growing really, really fast. So that's company that's growth fast, and you probably can sell them much easily than if you're going to have a 200 company, which last year they were 300 people and they're shrinking, or they are not growing, or it's a different story. So the main challenge today, I think, with sales teams is that they still work on a very shallow data, which doesn't tell you any story. It's just really static data. And this is the way they filter their audience. So they get tons of potential buyers. And it's not right, because you actually have a really, if you really get deeper into the company story, there is a different trend, there is a different timing that you need to reach out to every company to make the sale. And if you are able to provide them the best and the highest potential companies to focus on the right time, they will be much more effective. And it's a trend that the sales is transforming more and more into science and into data-driven mode.
One of the things that as I'm listening to you, I'm contemplating is, I find that a lot of the transitions goes back to linear algebra, and this idea that if before sales was really two-dimensional, you have who is the right client for me and how do I approach them. But you're actually saying, well, today we're adding a few more layers of complexity, such as what is the right time to approach them. And these are all really data-driven questions that, if you could potentially answer them with analysts, but you could never possibly scale to attempt to cover, even 5% of your potential market, right? And having a technology that does that on scale and generalized for companies makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and there are a lot of companies, there is specific time where they need to reach out. Let me give you a simple example. Lusha just raised money several months ago, and we just built a new finance team. And the probability that a company like us with those criteria now need to integrate ERP system is really, really high. And once we will integrate ERP system, we probably won't change it for the next 5-6 years. And so you need to identify all the companies that are currently building a finance team, and they need to integrate ERP. Otherwise, you're going to lose this momentum, and you have a specific time window that you need to reach out to. So that's a simple example, which an ERP company will need to target their potential buyers. But there are tons of that. Every company targets different time frame in the company lifecycle.
I love that example because I think it just illustrates, that at the end it's nothing about, not even about your own product. It has something to do with a company somewhere in the world that happens to be in a window of opportunity where maybe there was just a press release or the data was just released. And what I'm hearing is, in the next 3 weeks or so, they're going to be bombarded with, different ERPs, and they're going to make a decision. So this is the window of opportunity for the decision. Now, Yoni, as you're learning about sales and as you're learning about B2B and what works and what doesn't work, we're in 2021. What can I learn from your now 5 years of experience in the field as I go on my journey with sales? What are some things that you learned?
I think there is a lot of way to answer this question. I think that traditional sales, as I said, are moving from like really high volume sales or spray and pray into super targeted prospecting. So if you know your customers, you need to be very, very accurate about who you need to reach out to,
Right.
and then you need to put more efforts on lower amount of leads. That's the classic sales. But in general, when I think about sales, I think that the world is changing in a way that today, 75% of the people expect to self-educate themselves before they talk to sales rep or before they buy. And this is by Salesforce data, by the way. And why is that? I think because we are all consumers. And as a consumer, when you buy a shirt, when you buy sunglasses, when you buy iPhone, when you buy a car, you try before you buy it, right? You drive, you wear, you give it, you try. You just don't want to buy it. And there is no difference when you try to buy software. You just want to try. So more and more companies today are providing self-service experience and only then, when you know the product, when you saw that it works for you, and even after you put credit card inside, only then you can reach out to sales when you need to scale or when you have specific questions. And I think that the motion of sales is transforming, that instead of talking to prospects and people that doesn't know anything about you, the world is into talking to users and people that already know a lot of information about your product, but your job is to connect the dots and make sure that you make them successful. So if you think about it, sales today is becoming more and more like product experts and help you succeed rather than just tap on the play and pitch you the 30-second pitch. So.
Yoni, take me back 5 years, please. The founding of Lusha. I'd love to hear the Lusha story, and it starts with the name, because that's just amazing.
Yeah, so the name was the idea of my partner Asaf. Lusha was the nickname of his daughter. So several years ago, I think 8 years ago or something, he bought this domain and he said to himself, one day I'm going to do something with it. And then when we met, basically when I met him, he just wanted to buy data from me. I had data and he had another startup and he just wanted data. But he told me, hey, you can do this in this product, just enrich over the web. And each one of us went home and thought about it. And after 2 weeks, we spoke. And then I told him, I never stopped thinking about this idea. And he said, yeah, I didn't stop thinking about it as well. And then we said, okay, let's do it together. And so we launched the company. And we did it really, really fast. After 2 months, we already have product out there, really slow and clunky, but 2 months. And I think that's the story of Lusha. I think since we launched the company, we ran really, really fast with small iterations, and we did it bootstrap for 4.5 years. So the first 4.5 years, we grew to 12,000 customers with no funding, just because we built something really, really simple and really fast. And so everything I think in the journey was just, you learn from bottom up. It was bottom up experience. We didn't know at the beginning, we're going to be that big or we're going to do that. We started, and along the way, we just discovered more and more opportunities and more things that we need to improve. And up until today, it's also happens today.
As you're running Bootstrap for 4.5 years, as a leader of the company, you can't necessarily afford some of the luxuries that a VC-backed company with all the downsides of dilution and more partners and more complexity that has the side, but it also it is an enabler for growth, for nice offices, for good salaries. How do you deal with that as a CEO, with the fact that you don't have this extra $5 million in the bank after 6 months to just go nuts? What does that do to you?
I think that, yeah, I think we did build great offices, and we paid competitive salaries, and we did everything like that. But we just did very small stuff really, really well. So we put we gave good salaries to people, and when we built great offices, but we didn't do any marketing, for example, and we didn't have another site, and but what we did really, really lean. And I think what bootstraps helps you and demand from you is to be really, really focused about what you're doing and what you're not doing, because you cannot just try to do so many things simultaneously. You have to pick the most impactful thing that will drive the revenue, because if you won't drive the revenue, you won't be able to hire more people. So it helps you to be really good on taking decision on what's going to make an impact or not. And I think this is a muscle that was very important for us. I call it a revenue muscle. You learn how to create revenue, and sometimes, not necessarily, but sometimes in companies that are VC backed, they're not sensitive enough for revenue growth, because they just raise more money. It will come along the way someday, but it's actually something that you need to build capabilities for. And I think this is something that's gonna be part of our DNA for forever.
I love that you're taking the discussion to focus driven, because, one of the aspects that I haven't given much thought to is this idea that, with the luxury of raising money and having that stability, all of a sudden you might find yourself, being tempted to try a bunch of different things, bring more R&D to things that you don't necessarily believe in. And even if those are great experiments to run, your focus as a core team, especially in the early stages, starts getting divided, and the critical things become blurred with the nice to have things. And then you lose focus. And what I'm hearing from you, Yoni, is that you forced yourself and the team to remain dead focused on really the on target things that you're being measured on. And then 4.5 years later, what happens?
And then we realized that the opportunity is really, really high, and we have the passion to build a big company, and we need more resources to do that. So once we were committed for the big dream, for the really big dream, and we knew that we want to make this journey, then we just added a financial partner, because you cannot run that fast without resources. And we understood that we need to do more stuff simultaneously. We're still focused company, if you think about it, but we just do a bit more stuff, and we run faster. And one of the main things that we added recently is actually marketing efforts, which really help us to grow. So I think that was the main additional thing that we've done since the funding.
I'll just point out the irony that a sales B2B company didn't do much marketing for the first 4.5 years of its life cycle. I think that's pretty cool, I have to say.
Sure. Yeah, I think though. I think it was because we actually didn't raise, but actually the real reason for that is because we're a product-led company, and we build the product. So in a traditional company, marketing bring leads to sales, and sales uncover the product to the customer, right? It's marketing, sales, and product is last. In a product-led company and a self-serve company, it's a bit different. It's marketing bring leads to the product, and then you can try, you can buy, you can use, and if you need scale, you go to sales. So sales is the last in the funnel, and you speak to users, as we said. But it changed the need for that's a huge market, because if the product really, really works well, people will come, and this is what happened to us.
Right. No, I love this. Yoni, the story is amazing. I love what you guys are doing, and I encourage everybody to go check out the web. It's beautiful what you've done there. It feels like I'm almost in a Luna Park when I go into the website, and it just feels good. And I love what you guys are doing. Thanks. And I love the story and the journey, which is, a lot of people say the journey is more important than the end. Here, I think I'm learning so much from observing the journey. And I think that there's a lot of really important lessons on humbleness and prioritization and focus to be learned from the story of Lusha, and I'm sure that it will be told a lot more, in the coming years. And so, thank you for taking the time to be here. I have a few questions about Yoni, not about Lusha. Going back to middle school and high school, what was your favorite subject?
First, honestly, I didn't like learning in school.
Nobody on my show likes learning in middle
yeah,
school and high school. It's crazy.
yeah. I mean, because the way you learn is like memorize the material, and I always thought that I don't like to learn back then. Today, I knew that I learned that I really like to learn because I
Oh,
have passion to do it. But back then, the two subjects that I really focused on was math and physics. My father is a physics professor, so I couldn't let down on this subject. But those were the two. Honestly, the rest of the subject, I was an average, student, and just did what I had to do to pass everything. But those are the ones that I put more efforts in.
wow. Who would be a role model of yours? Somebody that inspires you?
I think Brian Alligan, the co-founder and CEO of HubSpot, and I'll tell you why. I think first, I think he built an amazing company with real story and thought leadership attitude, and I really like everything they did there in terms of product and stuff. But I think what I really like about him is that he looks like he's enjoying the journey, and he doesn't take himself too seriously, and he just have fun. And I think the combination between both is just inspiring, in my opinion. Be so successful and just enjoy what you do in such an honest way. So I really like him and the way he do it.
Amazing. And what are 3 words that you would use to describe yourself?
I think dynamic. Really move fast once I understand something. I think intuitive. I use my gut feel a lot, and I learn to use it more and more as I grow. And I hope the third one will be easygoing, because this is what I try to do as much as I can.
Yoni, toda rabba. I loved
Thank you.
this episode. It was great. And I can't wait to continue following Lusha. Toda rabba. Stay safe and stay
Thank you.
healthy, man.
Toda.